What is good, PENSARE Basketball fam? A lot has happened in the NBA world since we last spoke 7 days ago. And wow, that's a lot. It feels like an eternity has passed since we last spoke. There has been some bad news in the NBA. There have been some bad results. Yeah. Oh, my bad. Sorry. I had a background window open and I just got an ad for my own video. Great. A lot has happened, as I was saying. A lot has happened in the NBA world. There was an All-Star weekend. We gotta talk about that. We haven't talked about the All-Star weekend at all. Ooh, a lot of doomsday prognosticators have come out and said the Raptors are absolutely cooked because they have overextended themselves. I had a chance to listen to the Bill Simmons interview and uh, what's going on, guys? Yeah. And to anyone who were feeling the pain, like John here with the late again, 11 p.m. late again. You must be new around here. I am 2 to 3 minutes late for every single thing in my life. But I must say that the reason we pushed this live from the aforementioned 10:30 slot to 11 o'clock is because Canada is facing the United States, and it feels like anything Canada versus US right now feels like a national thing. So wanted to give people time, but that game has gone into overtime apparently. I'm not watching it because I'm doing this. Anyways, moving on. The All-Star weekend happened. Victor Wembanyama is out for the season. We're going to talk about that for sure because that is tough. And blood clots are a very, very serious thing. And I received some very, very bad news yesterday. And of course, y'all received it before I did because I have been completely in festival mode and I'm not browsing anything to do with basketball. Is that Ulrich Chomche is going to miss the entire season, the remainder of the season, which isn't that long, but we got to talk about that as well. But let's orient ourselves first to talking about the Toronto Raptors and just how disastrous their cap sheet is, and then we'll get into Ulrich and we'll talk about Wemby, and then finally we'll talk about the corporate nature of the All Star game and what it made me realize about life and where we're at overall. So this is the Raptors cap sheet for next year. Do you see albatross contracts? I think some people do. There's been a lot of talk. Look, man, over the last week, I really had to press a stone in my heart to not do a live. Part of it is just because I was 100% dialed into to Pendance stuff, but also part of it was honestly, I just wanted to give myself a break. I wanted to give myself a week to gather my thoughts, and I am Dirk saying RJ and IQ. Sadly, I don't see those contracts as albatross at all. I think if you want an example of an albatross contract, you need to look at Bradley Beal. I'm saying that's an egregious example of an albatross contract, but there are worse contracts. I'm sorry, there are worse contracts. When I look at a DeMar DeRozan at the age of 35, that may be a cheap deal, but it's certainly not a better deal than RJ Barrett. If we're being completely honest, youth is priced at a premium in the NBA. When you consider also Emmanuel Quickly, the value he provides as a shooter, potentially as a defender, I'm sorry, I don't see Emmanuel Quickly as a positive contract, nor do I see him as a negative contract. I don't see a negative contract here. What I see is a divide between how good this team is and how good people think it is, and therefore that is coming to basically color people's expectations of what is reasonable to pay for this roster. Because the charge has obviously been that it's not that, oh my God, the Raptors have this super expensive player. It's just that, hey, this team kind of sucks and is extremely expensive suddenly. First of all, this team does not suck. Okay. I think that's first and foremost like a very important thing and something that has been brimming in my mind pretty much nonstop for a week as I've thought about this. This team does not suck. This team does not suck. They have had moments, certainly, where they have sucked, but they have had also weeks upon weeks upon weeks of very competitive basketball. They have had moments where it seems like certain players are going backwards. A player like Scotty Barnes, who at this point last year was being talked about as an ascending star, is right now being talked about more as a plateauing star. And I think it's just so weird how we discuss basketball players as individuals in relation to the team context in which they are in, because I don't think that you can necessarily, like, this is not an easy equation to figure out. Sometimes you do have to see it. Like, I can hypothesize what a Brandon Ingram and a Scotty Barnes look like together and how they may magnify or amplify each other's value, right? You just talk to talk. Well, what would you like me to do? Would you like me to dance? Would you like me to juggle? What do you want me to do? Bro, this is a podcast. If you would like, you can turn your audio down. And you can just watch me talk and try to read my lips. Good luck. I don't move my lips very much, so I don't know. Anyways, now I have a pretty fresh perspective and outlook, not only on basketball, because again, it's a lot of shit happens when you don't talk about basketball for a week. When you think about it more deeply, but you're not constantly consuming it. Like I'm a person who consumes, I want to say at least 10 to 12 podcasts every single day. I'm constantly on the web. I'm constantly looking at Commissioner Dynamo, The Ringer. I'm listening to shit while I'm cooking. I'm consuming it all, man. And I take in so much, and I realize that it kind of keeps me in a static place. So moving myself away from that and just honing into the film world for a week, I come back at this and I look at this roster with fresh eyes. It's like I don't even remember the Brandon Ingram trade happened. You don't realize, like, I have been nonstop working for about 14 and a half to 15 and a half hours a day. It feels like, okay, I know because I had to double check. It's been 7 days since we did our last podcast. I'll be honest, it feels like it's been like 7 months. Puma hat is back. Yes, the Puma hat is back. It was only removed on the panel today because I heard some people saying that I was losing my hair, and I'm just like, I cannot let this comment stand. This is stupid. I am not losing my hair. I just I happen to feel safer with my Puma hat on, and maybe the Puma promos can only go on after 11 p.m. I'm gonna be on the panel for about an hour tomorrow. If you want to catch, to those of you who were on it today, yo, big shout outs to Gregory. Yo, you opened up a beautiful opportunity and a beautiful segment. To those of you who missed it, Gregory actually sent a $20 super chat on the panel today and ended up saying everyone should go to Pendance Film Festival, which was so random, but also so smart because absolutely. What is wrong with going bald, though? No need to be self conscious. Well, first of all, when I do go bald, and I'm Eastern European, so I definitely will go bald at some point. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. Until that day, however, we are not crossing that bridge. I have known ever since I was born that one day I would be looking like my uncles. I knew it. I've always known it. But I am 37 and I have my hair. That is something that I am happy about. Okay. Point being, uh, Greg ended up leaving that super chat for $20, which was very, very cool because it invited everyone on the panel to talk about Pendance. And we ended up having like a 7 to 8 minute segment on what Pendance is and how next year maybe PC wants to come out and support the panel. Sorry, support Pendance, have a live show at Pendance. Y'all would come out for that, right? Like y'all would definitely come out. I think there's enough Players Choice fans in Toronto that we could pack an auditorium of like 400 people to watch a live show, right? I feel like that would be such a cool event for Pendance, and that would be just a great way to network and a great way to basically tie together my two greatest passions, which is basketball and cinema, right? Anyways, I digress. Puma hat is back on. I am feeling very refreshed. I am not at all like I don't know how to be angry right now. You know what I mean? Like I've started so many podcasts with like this fuming anger, but right now I am chill, bro. I am so zen, and I promise I am not baked. Yo, I agree. I agree. 15,000 people watched me talk about Pendance for 8 minutes. I am, Greg. As far as putting your dollars to use, that $20 went like hundreds of dollars forward, man. So I appreciate you so much for doing that, and I appreciate all of your support on this channel as well. So big shout out to Gregory. He's a community moderator here. Appreciate you. Going on to the Raptors element of this. So stepping away from this for a week, now I get to come back and I'm like, oh wait, Brandon Ingram's on my team. How did this happen? I know I saw it happen. I made videos about it. I know I was live when I found out about it. I know it's real, but it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real to me. And I think there's one of two sort of polar weird reactions to this that I've seen everywhere. Reaction number one is It doesn't move the needle at all. Brandon Ingram is injury prone. Brandon Ingram has had a slew of health problems. Brandon Ingram is 27, hasn't really won much of anything. It's not really going to do very much. Probably should have bottomed out, which the Raptors may still very well do with Brandon Ingram. So that was a part of the equation that Josh Lewenberg and others like him did not account for, Sid Sixero, etc. But also, this idea of just bringing talent in the door and wondering about fit later. So there's some idea of like maybe it doesn't work. How does a coach who preaches ball movement have this player who is so ball dominant and so mid-range focused? How do players like Scotty Barnes plus RJ Barrett plus Jakob Pertl plus Brandon Ingram? How does everybody and Grady Dick as well, frankly, Jacoby Walter, all of these players, that you're trying to build around, they're all kind of trying to get to the exact same area on the floor, which is the nail. And so it's like you have 6 cars that are all heading to the exact same spot. At some point, you need some diversity in your offensive structure. I get it. I completely get that. I completely get that. You know, and to that, I'll say Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson won a championship together. At some point, talent is talent, right? And then, of course, there is the other opposite extreme reaction to the Brandon Ingram stuff, which is basically the Raptors have found their superstar. He's going to become a superstar here. And, move over Scotty, move over RJ, move over IQ. This is Brandon Ingram's team now. And I don't think either one of those reactions is necessarily right or fair. I think Scotty remains your best player. I think he remains the guy you're building around. I think Brandon Ingram amplifies everything, though. I think Brandon is so good. I think he's such a good basketball player. And I think he's a smart basketball player. And I think that he's going to help tremendously. And I think that $38 million that you're paying him is going to age well. I really do. To consider like that the mid-level exception next year is going to be $15 million. I think you got away like pretty much on a really reasonable deal. And hey, it's a nice feather in your cap if you're a Raptor fan to know that hey, he had $160 million on the floor from on the board from an American team, and he decided to come and bring his ass to a snowstorm in Toronto. It's a great introduction that Brandon Ingram is getting to Toronto, by the way. He's come here and he's come here for less. Of course, none of this is true. He has come here for an opportunity for a new start. He's come here for an opportunity to challenge himself. And he has also come in here because he heard some good things about the culture. And I mentioned something, just maybe a connection that people didn't draw together. But one of Brandon's tightest teammates is actually Jose Alvarado. Jose Alvarado plays for the New Orleans Pelicans. We all know him. We've all seen him trying to snipe the basketball from behind when a unsuspecting point guard is trying to dribble up the court. Well, it just so happens that Jose Alvarado and Scotty Barnes bonded quite a bit over last All-Star weekend. They were very, very chummy, very tight. I don't know what it is about Scotty and undersized guards. He just loves them. So that connection, when Brandon Ingram at his press conference said, "I've heard good things about Scotty Barnes," I was like, yeah, it doesn't take a genius to figure out where those good things came from. And then, of course, right after his presser, there was a picture of Jose Alvarado holding up his phone, FaceTiming Brandon Ingram. So they're still tight. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if the Jamal Shed experience does not work out in Toronto, that, we might have a little bit of a Jose Alvarado sighting in Toronto as well. My point is relationships go really long, far away in this league. And when everyone's being paid millions and millions of dollars, the market matters, maybe New York, LA, but more so than everything, it matters my day to day. Am I happy, being here? And I think that has an amplifying effect on team morale, but also who wants to actually come here, who wants to play here. I think Scotty is a very, very connective player. I think he has a chance to be much, much more than that. I think he has a chance to be a smaller version of Nikola Jokic. I think he has that type of upside. And that is certainly a player that is worth building around at $38 million. But that's not what Bill Simmons thinks. That's not what Bill Simmons thinks. When you look at Emmanuel Quickley in a vacuum, just take his production. If you just look at him and you say, okay, this is his true shooting percentage. This is his value of a replacement. This is his box plus minus. These are his defensive tendencies. These are his offensive tendencies. These are his limitations. If you look at an RJ Barrett, if you look at a Brandon Ingram, if you look at a Scotty Barnes, everyone is looked at in a vacuum. And you look at this team as a bunch of individual parts, maybe you can sell yourself on the idea that it's a little bit expensive. You really could. What you may be missing, however, is that that's not how basketball is played. Basketball is played by how pieces amplify or dim each other, right? I can put a player on the court with four very good players, and he can make all four of those really good players worse players. Or I can put a player on whom themselves maybe isn't the greatest player, but their presence on the court actually amplifies and magnifies the strengths of the other players. And I think that the Raptors have a lot of those connective type of pieces that maybe go underrated by casual observers. Of course, the last panel episode that I was on, we talked a lot about the Detroit Pistons and Cade Cunningham. And it just irks me how different the conversation is now about Cade Cunningham in relation to Scotty Barnes and his other contemporaries. It irks me to no end because obviously I've made no secrets about this. I don't necessarily rate Cade as like a franchise level talent. I don't. I've never seen him as the best player in this draft, in his draft class. I don't. I just don't see him as that type of player. And obviously, I do see Scotty as that type of player. I see Franz as that type of player. I, I've had moments with Paolo. I definitely see Chet as that type of player if he can stay healthy. But there's a different level. But how differently people talk about Cade because he's winning. The winning thing is so weird in the NBA. How like you win like 6, 7 games because you had a soft schedule, and suddenly people are like, "Is this team next up?" You lose a few games. Are they washed? Are they over? We react way too soon. We react way too soon about things, right? And there are a whole bunch of people right now swearing Laurie Markkinen just forgot how to play basketball. He did not. He did not. He's a very, very serviceable and very good player. And then you take a team like the Sacramento Kings. Look at the individual talents there. You think Malik Monk isn't a hell of a talent? Of course, he's a hell of a talent. He's a very good player. He's a very good playmaker. He's a great athlete, not a great defender. If you put Malik Monk in the right situation, I am confident that that dude could push all-star level production. Confident. He is so talented. So talented. I'm not gassing it. I'm telling you straight up, Malik Monk, watch him play. Imagine a scenario where a Malik Monk is in a situation like, I don't know, where he has like the right spacing around him, the right defenders around him. Yeah, you can make it work. So, as a general manager or as a president, your job as an architect of the team is to put the pieces together that will actually magnify each other. You know what I really love about Brandon Ingram? It sounds really stupid, but it's that wingspan. It's that size. It's that size that he has that can really, really set. It's the gravity that he has as a scorer. He is one of those panic attack type of players, and I don't know why players do this, but every single time they see Brandon Ingram, there is like an internal go get him, you know, like with players. There's there's not any sense of like ignore him. The teams do not guard him the way that they guard someone like a Jonathan Mobo right now. They don't even guard him the way they guard a Scotty Barnes. They guard him differently. And they consistently overhelp, they consistently over panic. And Brandon is a very good playmaker. He's a great playmaker, actually. And so when you consider that, you're like, man, did Scotty's just diet of easy shots just go up a lot? Yes, it did. 100%. Then you think about Brandon and you think about what system he was being used in with New Orleans, and you're like, man, could Darko unlock some easy opportunities for him? Could Darko make him a more efficient corner shooter? And you're like, oh, damn. I mean, you know, corner shooters are a dime a dozen, but ones who could shoot 40% and also kind of carry a unit offensively and do a whole bunch of playmaking stuff. And also, they're not negative defenders. Like those players are max players. And so I think the Raptors recouped great value on most of their contracts. There's also the element of this where Bobby Webster has just come out and his messaging was very confident. We're not a super expensive team. And if we do get a little bit more expensive, that's the cost of doing business in the NBA. Like we understand what we have here and we need to support it. And we can't be nickel and diming this shit because we are one of the most, I mean, he didn't say it, but they are one of the richer franchises in the NBA. They're one of the more valuable franchises in the NBA. And frankly, they have been one of the most effectively managed from a financial perspective teams in the league. And by the way, if you do end up dipping into the tax for a couple of years, your contracts do run out at some point, right? The danger of starting that, luxury tax, repeater tax, that scenario, the danger of going down that road is you don't want to go down it too early. And I think that's where the Raptors are going to have to, maybe measure a little bit, measure twice, cut once. So I guess what I'm trying to say in this sort of roundabout way is what I really resent is the idea that this team is what people say it is. that this team should be measured as a 16, 17, 18 win team, or a team that's likely to finish with 25 wins. That somehow that is the barometer for what this team is supposed to be next year. Bro, no, it is not. No, it is not. Okay. Scotty's been in and out of the lineup. Emmanuel Quickly's been in and out of the lineup. And you can just look at Emmanuel Quickly and be like, okay, what does he really add? What does he really add? He's just a better shooter than Davion Mitchell, fine, but he's a worse defender. He's not the greatest playmaker. But it's like he's being put in a position where he's probably massively over leveraged. You know, the first thing that I thought when Brandon Ingram came in, the pecking order just changed in Toronto. There's no more free opportunity. There's very little free opportunity left when Brandon Ingram comes in because he is sucking up possessions. And frankly, I don't say sucking up possessions is a negative. It's a good thing. Who would you rather have operating in the mid post? Brandon Ingram or Grady Dick? Who would you rather have in the post? Making that secondary read, RJ Barrett or Brandon Ingram? Like, again, in terms of how the defense shifts with one player versus the other, I think this helps everybody. It tremendously helps everybody. Basketball is not zero sum in this sense. I mean, basketball is very zero sum in that one team wins, one team loses, but it's not zero sum in terms of how players impact each other, right? Like Brandon Ingram can take a bunch of possessions and then increase the quality of everybody else's possessions by taking those low quality possessions. Because in the end, every single team has a certain number of low quality shots every game that they have to take. And the good teams have great players that can take those possessions. It's the simplest way to look at it. Everybody can hit an open layup in the NBA. Everyone's got an open dunk. And every game is going to find you opportunities where the defense falls asleep and somebody cuts back door, or the defense, miscommunicates and you just get a fast break. Everyone can hit those shots. Those are opportunistic vulture shots. It's those shots where the defense does everything right and you still got to find 2 points. The defense switches everything and it's not to your advantage, and the clock is running down because you had a pass tipped, the ball goes out of bounds, you got 3 seconds to make a play from a phone booth. Who's creating that shot for you? And right now the answer is frankly nobody. There's nobody on this team that can do that. Now you have somebody who can do that. That doesn't mean that he has to come in and average 30 points. It means he fills a role. He fills a role as the guy who is designated to take this crazy difficulty shots that nobody else on your team really has the skill set to make at a high clip. That's it. That's that simple. And then beyond that, of course, it is the amplification element of the attention that he takes, right? How many teams do you know that have 2 wings that can guard Scotty plus Brandon Ingram? Well, when Brandon Ingram comes out in the first quarter and gets 8, 9 points, well, guess who's switching? Everything. Guess who's now got an easier matchup? Scotty Barnes. And now you play ping pong. This is basketball in a nutshell. You're not gonna see the value by isolating Brandon or isolating Scotty. You're gonna see it when they play together, and you're like, right, this right here, this works. Okay. And the reason I brought up the Cade thing, not to dance all over the place, is because very often through the first 3 years of Cade Cunningham's tenure in Detroit, 2 things were consistently blamed. His teammates, well, 3 things actually. His teammates, his coaches, and frankly, his injuries. It was never, he's not efficient. It was never, look at his rim percentage. It was never, look at his 3-point percentage. It was never, look at his defense. It's not as good as advertised. It was never, look at the turnovers. It was never that. What it was consistently was, he doesn't have anyone to help him. Scotty has more help. Well, here we go. We have flipped positions now. Scotty is the one who is lacking the help, and Cade is the guy on a deep team with a lot of positive defenders who are doing a lot of heavy lifting for that team. And you can make an argument that Cade has had a much better season than Scotty. I'll agree with you on that. Better season, better player, very different equations. And so when I look at this and I'm like, okay, you're going to judge one guy in a really, really good situation and one guy in a really bad situation. That's not even Steven. And so next year, when you do see a Scotty with a complete team around him, hopefully that's healthy, I think you'll see a very, very different player. And then therefore, people will feel very, very different about how pricey this team is, because when you are a 47 to 48 win team, this payroll does not seem pricey. This payroll is only pricey if you're expected to be the ninth seed next year, which, frankly, looking at the Eastern Conference and the disastrous injuries that have already happened around the league, and Joel Embiid's, decline, and Giannis Antetokounmpo's, repeated injury, and him getting closer and closer to like over 30, and he is over 30 right now, right? Giannis is over 30. So it's like you see some of these stars and you're like, who's really scaring you in the Eastern Conference right now? Boston, but they're getting older and they're super, super expensive. So at some point they're gonna have to tear that thing apart. Cleveland's a little bit, I mean, they're a good team, but again, Donovan Mitchell, like it's I'm not saying they're gonna be bad next year. They're definitely gonna be good, but you time it a little bit and you're like, damn, in 2026, 2028, who's really like the dynasty forming in the Eastern Conference? There's an opening, and I think the Raptors should take it. Now, speaking of injuries, and there was the news about Ulrich. Now, a lot of overreactions to that as well. Seems a lot of some people on Real GM. I read a post by some dude saying we should waive the dude because he got injured. Okay, partial tear, not a complete tear. That's the reporting. Targeting Summer League. Now, I want to say that obviously this was a gut punch. My initial reaction to this, ironically, to Medved, who messaged me, "Welcome back, bro. Thank you very much." My honest to goodness reaction, I can show you the DM, is no, with like eight O's. That was the reaction to Ulrich tore his MCL. I think that's what you said. I'm not. I don't want to misquote you, but I think that's what you said, that he tore his that he tore his MCL. So, do you miss posting on Real? No, I have not posted on Real GM in, I want to say, 18 years, 17 years, 16 years. It's been a very, very long time. 2007, 18 years. It's half my life. That's crazy. So my point being, partial MCL tear. Right. So the messaging around this is that he will target a return in Summer League. And I think, honestly, you never ever want to see this with a player, but I'll give you the silver lining as it pertains to Ulrich. Silver lining number one, he is an extremely hard worker. So if anyone is going to take their rehab to the T, to the dotted I, to the cross T, and absolutely, do everything that the team's medical staff is asking him to do so that he ensures a speedy recovery. And yes, good stuff, man. Good stuff for Canada. Big shout outs to Canada hockey beating the United States. I'm sure that's a very, very big moment. And as someone who is doing a live through overtime, I apologize. I missed it, but that would have been nice to see. Point being, I don't think it's the end of the world, right? He's a super hard worker. The second thing I'll say is, I think it's probably better to have these injuries when you're young. Like, Ulrich is insanely young. He's 19 years old. His body is going to mend itself, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Ulrich is not only in Summer League, as long as the reporting is correct and it is a partial tear. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Summer League. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually back in the gym probably a month and a half before Summer League. That would not surprise me at all. Okay. The third thing I'll say is this is a little bit more complicated to understand, but this is something exactly what I said with Scotty last year. Go back and check what I said when Scotty got hurt, right? Now, me, a big Scotty Barnes fan, you would expect me to say, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. I can't believe it. But that's not what I said when he got injured. I said this could be a blessing in disguise for him. And later on, we found out it was a blessing in disguise for him. You see, sometimes for young players, it helps to be on the court. But sometimes it really helps to stop. It really helps to stop. I don't know what it is, but sometimes that disruption of the day-to-day minutia just resequences and reorders everything in your head. Right now, Ulrich he's a sponge. He is a very hard worker. And clearly with with both knees working and both arms working, there was tasks, he was traveling a lot. Right now, what is going to happen is he's going to have to slow down. He's going to have to stop. He's going to have to think. And that can be a very, very good thing for a player whose understanding of the game. His talent is one thing, his understanding, deeper understanding of plays, where to be, film study. This is what is behind. Yes, you need game reps, 100%. You need game reps. But what you need right now is a pause from Ulrich, and you need him to be able to dig into the details of basketball, the details of defense, the details of a scouting report. You need to teach this player the true ins and outs of being a professional basketball player. And again, he has performed admirably in the G League. 2.9 blocks in very limited minutes per game. And the bummer here is obviously that the Raptors had a plan to roll him out and play him more and more NBA minutes. Now, that be helpful? Of course it'd be helpful. But this can also be helpful. I'm not saying I would have preferred him to be injured. Certainly not. It was a bummer. But if anyone was going to get injured, let it be the super young player who works extremely hard and has a lot of off court understanding and development to do. This is going to give him a chance to watch his teammates. This is going to give him a chance to be in those film study rooms and maybe even a chance to get a little bit stronger, because just because you have an MCL tear does not mean that you can't be lifting weights after a few weeks have passed, or he'll be taking a light a little bit. Also, I will say at some point it's just system overload, right? Too much happens. Think about how many games this guy's played. Do you know how many games he probably played in his life prior to this year? You know how many games he's already played in the NBA and the G League? He's played so much this year. So this is the year he was supposed to be in college. He has already played more professional games than he would have played college games had he sustained no injury at all. So this is the blessing in disguise. The silver lining here is Ulrich may 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, when we look back on this, we may actually view him getting injured as a catalyst for growth as opposed to a catalyst for regression. So that's what I'll say. Now, one injury that does not help anybody, and this is the tough one, is the Victor Wembanyama injury. And I thought that when we were on the panel when the news broke, and honestly, I had to stop myself from like actually letting out a tear. My heart really, really goes out to his family, to Eva, and to his brother, and to Victor, and he's such a hard worker. It's something about blood clots, man. I got to tell you, the deep vein thrombosis thing, it really does tend to affect taller athletes more. I read about it this a little bit today, where it seems like the taller you are, the more likely you are, more susceptible you are to blood clots. But I will say to anybody out there, the warning signs are extremely silent. And, it's very, very lucky and very fortunate that the Spurs medical staff caught it, allegedly. They say it's usually in the legs, but with Victor and, with several other players in the NBA, it has been in the shoulder. And so Victor, experienced some discomfort. Luckily, the Spurs doctors are freaking awesome. Generally speaking, they've been awesome. Kawhi Leonard's uncle does not agree, but most of the time they've been pretty good historically, keeping players healthy. And it's very, very fortunate that, they caught it early, because this is the type of thing that can be so life threatening. I don't think people completely appreciate the magnitude or gravity of it. When you tell somebody that Chris Bosh had to medically retire because of blood clots, or when Christian Coloco had blood clots, like this is the type of stuff that frankly, it's not just career ending potentially. It's the type of stuff that can be life ending. And when it comes to a 7'4", future face of the league like Victor Wembanyama, you don't take chances. So it doesn't matter about this season. At this point, it's just about him getting better. And hopefully, with most players, the blood thinner and some management and some rest. Obviously, strenuous activities like playing basketball are completely off the table when you have a blood clot. But I think that a situation like that will hopefully resolve itself. And I'm praying for Victor to have a very, very speedy recovery. He is just a fantastic dude off the court, and you see some of the stuff that he's done, the work that he's done, and to have a player this young, this committed, this hardworking have to go through this is, it's not just saying like, oh, if he wasn't hardworking, he deserves blood clots, but it sucks even more when you feel how badly someone is chasing it. And the Spurs are currently, I think, in the 12th seed of the West, and I was projecting them to make a really big push with De'Aaron Fox. But now it sort of swings them the other way, where they may have a strong incentive to tank. And if you're the Toronto Raptors, to tie this back to a Raptors thing, I mean, now you got more competition coming up behind you because there are a lot of friggin' teams that could become really bad over the next couple of weeks. And the Raptors, of course, sitting pretty with one of the easiest schedules remaining, if not the easiest schedule remaining. And all those games against Washington and Portland coming up, although Portland's not a super easy team anymore, but at least Washington coming up, that's going to be tough, man. It's going to be a really, really tough ride for the Raptors. And I'm projecting falling anywhere down to 6, 7, 8. I could see that happening too. Now, I think the Raptors will do well in this draft. I look forward to doing more draft coverage after Pendance, which wraps up on March 3rd. We would turn our focus almost, I want to say exclusively, but definitely, I want to say 50% of our coverage on this channel will be draft related. Mock drafts, player profiles, players that I think fit. We could even talk a little bit about the 2026 draft. Maybe we'll stick to the 2025 draft. It's a pretty damn good draft. So we'll definitely shift our focus once Pendance ends. I do want to address the All-Star weekend. I can't remember a time in my life where I've been less excited about an All-Star weekend. And I can't remember a time in my life where I've enjoyed an All-Star weekend less than what happened last weekend in Oakland. There's so many complicated thoughts about it, right? The G League, team. I was very, very happy to see the G League team be competitive and actually knock off a team, that full of NBA players. Is a big win for the G League because I think I've always been an advocate that there's more talent in the G League than people often give it credit for, and it's always kind of pissed me off how underfunded the G League programs are. How undermarketed it is. Like it just feels like there's some good basketball that could be created in the G League. It just feels like there isn't a system in place to organize it or, promote it properly. It's always been sort of viewed as like like an afterthought. And it's always nice when you see someone like Mac McClung, really show out. But I think when I look at the skills competition, I was thinking back to some of my favorite skills competitions, which included guys like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, right? Steve Nash, Chris Paul losing every year, Darren Williams, right? You think about these players and what they all had in common was they were actually players who were stars. And unfortunately, the All-Star weekend more and more increasingly has not been about stars. Even if you could put 2 to 3 stars into the NBA dunk contest and have 2, 3 non-stars and maybe one G League guy competing against those stars. At the very least, there's a story, right? At the very least. But unfortunately, I think the impact really comes when the top dog sort of sets the table, right? When Michael Jordan was going to dunk contests, how dare you not go to a dunk contest? I always say this with teams and organizations. And if you could view the Chicago Bulls as an organization, you view the Toronto Raptors as an organization. Well, if you look at it more from a macro perspective, you have to look at the NBA as an organization as well. And unfortunately, stars dictate terms. They dictate what's normal. I'll guarantee you right now, if LeBron James, as the face of the league in 2012 or 2013, had done a couple of dunk contests, granted, he probably would be past the window to do them at that point, but let's just say in 2007, 2008, he made a priority to do it. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have seen stars evaporate as quickly as you did because no star wants to lose to a role player. It diminishes your brand. Now, if you are a John Morant, you lost to Mac McClung. How do you go back from that? Your sponsors don't like you now because you're now the guy who lost to a G Leaguer. Where did we go wrong here is probably when we started valuing winning more than competition. Competing in and of itself is a very admirable thing. That you fought, that you competed, that you tried is an important thing. If you want to screw your kids up, only reward them when they do good things. No, you should reward them when they try to do good things, when they work hard at things. Don't only reward the results. You should reward the effort. I'm not saying participation trophy. I'm not saying get them a trophy for being 8th place. No, let them know 8th place is not acceptable and beat them with a belt if you feel inclined to. Please do not beat your kids with a belt. That was a joke. But what I'm saying is that we need to honor the idea of competition. We need to honor the fact that if you're going to get dunked on trying to block Michael Jordan, that it's honorable that you tried instead of running away from it. When did losing become the worst thing in the world? It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. LeBron should know that. He's lost a lot of times in the finals. Should he just stop going to the finals? I think this started sort of when, LeBron tried to hide that tape of the player who dunked on him at his camp. And it just kind of goes from there. Like, you don't want to be embarrassed. Social media magnifies everything in a stupid and unproductive way. Every decision, every iota, every movement, every hand gesture, every body language is just over dissected, and narratives are created like this guy's a bum because he lost to this guy or whatever. But yeah, I think number one, I think the competition is just missing. You know, it should bother you that with the entire world watching. I mean, let's just not even try to cap and say the entire world watched the All-Star weekend. I barely watched it myself. But I think when you look at it from that perspective and you say, like, there should be that pride that I don't want my guy to score on me. I don't want to lose this game. Where the hell did that go? And again, I look at LeBron. And I'm not trying to blame LeBron for everything because he's done a lot of great things for this game. But when you talk about the buddy buddy culture of the NBA, everyone trying to team up with each other, trying to form super teams and all this shit, I can't say this ever existed before LeBron's decision. I can't really say that existed. I think even at the time when LeBron made his decision, you saw a lot of scathing pushback, even from a guy like Kevin Durant, who subsequently made his own little mini decision at some point. He was just like, no, this moving around from team to team. I think this is just the influence. Even when you look at stars who are trying to control their front offices more than ever, frankly, more than ever, we are seeing executives who are so afraid to lose their star player that suddenly they're like, okay, who do you want in the draft? Not do you like this guy? We're thinking about him, but like, who do you want? Who do you want to sign this summer? You know what I mean? And I think that it's sort of the inmates running the asylum. So I think that's one problem with the NBA All-Star weekend is that people aren't really, it's not really about the competition anymore. It's about the results. How is that similar at all? You're talking about two guys past their prime in their 30s, one of whom was traded, the other one whom was traded. Neither of them ported over. Neither of them were in their primes. Neither of them conspired with Paul Pierce to form a trio. No. Like, if I'm LeBron James, like I'm the face of the NBA in 2008, 2009, let's be honest. LeBron was the face of the NBA in 2006, 2007. No disrespect to Kobe. It was LeBron. When the face of the league and the future of the league decides, I don't want to compete anymore against Miami, I want to join Miami, it really does open the door for everybody beneath him in the pecking order to do the same thing. I say that just as I would say when Allen Iverson skips a practice, it opens the door for Aaron McKee to not really take that practice very seriously. I do think that your marching orders come from the top, which means that if your top guy is Scotty Barnes and he's super selfless, really does open the door for everybody else to be selfless. In fact, Aaron Gordon had a brilliant quote about this where he said, he was being asked by a reporter in Denver about why are you so selfless? Like, where did you learn to be so selfless? And Nikola Jokic walks into the building and into the presser, and he says, "That guy. If a 3-time MVP can do it, I can do it." This is the point. But it doesn't matter that Nikola Jokic is a 3-time MVP. The face of the league is not Nikola Jokic or Giannis Antetokounmpo or Luka Doncic. It's not Joel Embiid. It's been LeBron, and it'll probably be LeBron until he retires. And that's it. That's who set the marching orders for what is normal and what is okay. Ducking dunk contests because you don't want to lose because it's bad for your brand. Okay. Skipping out on the team that drafted you because they're a pile of shit organization, apparently, and going over to join a loaded team with two other star slash superstars around the same age and conspiring to do it above the team started really this idea of players deciding if they can do that, why can't we do that? I mean, the minute that news goes off, there's certain players that have the gravitas or power or importance to shift how the league looks and how the league thinks about what's normal. The Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic is a great example of something that moves the needle of the NBA. Every single star looked at their owner, looked at their GM, and said, "Nobody's off the table anymore. If Luka can get traded, anyone can get traded," and that's fair. That's fair. The old, these hoes ain't loyal, right? That really does change the dynamic. So I'm very keenly I'm very aware of the power that LeBron has had, good and bad. By the way, the political advocacy and all the stuff that he's done in that regard, which you may have an issue with, but I certainly think for the most part has been positive. That also is a positive influence. So it goes both ways. I mean, taking care of your body, showing up to practice, being a good teammate, all these things. Anyways, I digress. The other thing that has completely ruined All-Star Weekend is the gimmickry. The gimmickry. I'm not sure that's a word, but I know y'all know what I mean when I say gimmickry. The need to appeal to everyone, the need to be so unspecific and so vague that you basically rob yourself of any actual identity as a brand, to the point where you are now willing to cater to every single faction of your fan base and say, okay, we're going to be variety hour. We're going to have a little bit of comedy for the comedy people. We're going to have Kevin Hart there, and we're going to have, all these social influencers, and we're going to actually prioritize the celebrity game, even though it's a freaking joke. And we're going to have Mr. Beast there with all his controversies. Forget all the controversies. We're going to have Mr. Beast because he's going to pull in an audience, and it's just stacking. It's stacking. And it's money. At the end of the day, it's money. How the hell do you say no to money? How do you say no to money? I don't know. Does your sleep matter to you? To those of you who follow this channel, I'm not for sports betting. And so whenever it came down to, you know, taking sports betting sponsorships or whatever, I've always said no. Doesn't matter where I'm at financially. I'm not going to be able to sleep if I'm pushing sports betting on my followers, so I won't do it. That's going to be my response if I'm homeless in 3 years, if this economy continues to tank. That's going to be my response today if I'm comfortable. That's just where we go. So if you're the NBA, you need to have an assertion of values as well and say, what the hell is this event about, right? Letting in every single person in the world who could even remotely be qualified for a media pass, creating this sort of predatory, almost like gross environment where every single athlete is being bombarded with like 800 people asking them questions at all times. Nobody's having fun here, least of all the viewers who watched 30 plus minutes of basketball in the All-Star. Ad break, it was disgusting. It was disgusting. And we get it, it's like you got to pay to keep the lights on. You know, uh naming awards doesn't distract me too much from it. Like the Kia Rookie of the Year, that doesn't distract me too much. I understand. I'd rather it be just the Rookie of the Year. Let some things be saying, safe and sacred. But okay, the Kia Rookie of the Year. Okay, that's no problem. Like whatever. This guy's he's the Sprite Zone. Like these things don't bother me too much. I think when sponsorships start to bother me is when they take away from why I'm watching. That's when they really start to bother me. I was at a film festival. I'm not going to name the film festival, but I was at a film festival this summer. Very cool film festival in Toronto. And we were there to watch a feature film, my girlfriend and I. And we're sitting there. And before the feature film starts, there's like a 3-minute ad for the big sponsor. Then there's an ambassador from the brand. And by the way, the sponsored logos are everywhere. It's like all around you. You cannot escape it. Anywhere you look, the sponsor is boom, 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 boom. They're trying to give you free giveaways. And it's like, cool. You want to give me cheese? You want to give me wine? Cool. That's nice. That's the sponsorship that I like. The sponsorship that actually helps me. But the sponsorship that takes me away from the film that I'm watching, that sucks. And I'm looking at this and it's like, okay, the 3-minute ad roll is done. I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, cool. Now we get to watch the movie, right? No, it's a 2-minute ad roll for another thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to snap. And then after that, if that wasn't enough, 3 minutes plus 2 minutes is fucking 5 minutes of my life that I want to watch an 80-minute film or 85-minute film about soccer or whatever it was about. And oh, by the way, now we're going to have the person from the company that's sponsoring the film festival come out and talk to us for 5 minutes about why the frigging brand is so good. And I'm just like, bro, I'm not here. Your name is not on my ticket, and I'm losing my mind. And it made me so mad. And I realized that's just our world right now. That's our world, right? And it bothers me because I show up to a film festival to watch a film, not get a product pushed down my throat, not to get tote bags, not to do any of that. It's supposed to be a safe place to do that. I don't want to say safe place like a snowflake. I'm not trying to be a snowflake here. I'm just saying something should be pure. Basketball should be pure, man. I understand you need to, put some ads in, the corner, whatever. Put them in the corner. You got to put them on a jersey. Shit, put them on a jersey. The hell do I care? But when you take 20 minutes between a basketball game to let me be quote unquote entertained by some segment of a demographic that I don't fit, that's annoying. When you plug sponsors at every single, corner of everything, and it's so overwhelming, and it really does cheapen the entire thing. It really does. At what point did basketball just lose its motion? Basketball is not enough, right? But I think what it comes down to is that money is an endless pit because the NBA was not in financial trouble. This is not the 70s and 80s where the NBA was like dying for it. But of course, when somebody comes to you and says, here's an additional $5 million, all we want to do is talk about our brand for, a couple of minutes. How do you say no to that? Right? What's pure basketball? Well, I don't know about pure basketball, but I certainly could tell you that's what's purer basketball. That I could tell you. Ethical hoops, as my man Jared Allen likes to say, ethical hoops, right? I mean, it's without the gimmickry. It's without the it's substantial. It's the substance of basketball. Like there's something very beautiful about watching five people, whether it be men or women, whatever, trying to achieve something on a basketball court. That's actually beautiful to me. Maybe I'm a nerd about basketball, but that's cool to me, right? Going to a film festival to watch a film that I've never seen before and that I may never be able to see again in this country on a big screen is cool to me. These things don't need more. More is not always better. More everything, more money, more. It's not always better. I mean, hard to find people in this world who agree with that statement, but it's true. It's true. It doesn't always make your life better. In fact, I largely do avoid a lot of bigger film festivals because of the sponsorship placements. I find it nauseating. I do. And I'll tell you, probably never really admitted this on the air, but there was a star who was supposed to come to Pendance in year 3, year 2, year 3, year 3, actually. There was a star who was supposed to, no, it was year 2, my bad. So 2019, there was a star who was supposed to come in 2019, and we had to set it up, right? Where this star could come and, their publicist was involved and they wanted a hotel and they wanted everything. And so we were like, okay, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. And then the publicist that we wanted to work with said, we got to put everything around the star. And I'm like, bro, there's 49 films at this film festival. We can't just make everything about the star. Yeah, sure, it's one star. They're like, oh, but people will come to the event for the star. And it's like, but what if we want people to come to the event for the films? And they're like, but people haven't heard of these films. So why would they come? They would want to meet the star. And I made an executive decision, which pissed off everybody on our, and I just said, we're not going to do it. If this star wants to come, he can come, but he's going to be a guest, and we're not going to announce it. And if he wants to do a couple of sit down interviews or whatever, during the festival, it's totally cool. We can make press availability room, but we're not going to do that thing where we put him on our poster and say this entire event is because Joe Schmo star is coming to the festival. So come meet Joe Schmo star. And they did not like that. People didn't like that. But I believe that they didn't like it because they're not used to it. I believe they didn't like it because it rub them the wrong way. Just like I'm sure that when gambling ads hear from me and I say we are not interested in gambling sponsorships, they may not like me because they're like, who the fuck are you to turn down $2,000 when all we want you to do is push gambling for 5 minutes in an episode. But in the end, I'm gonna be me about this. And if I was running the NBA, which I'm not, it would be a very different product. And again, I go back to a lot of stuff that my grandfather said. My grandfather passed away a while ago in 2008, so I think about him a lot, and I think about some of the early wisdom that he gave me. And he said, "You don't get to choose whether or not you have problems in life, but you do get to choose which problems you want to have." Now, I don't know if that's 100% true. Maybe sometimes you don't get to choose all your problems. But I think for the most part, it's proven true in my life that you could choose between problems, right? You can't choose not to have problems. Everyone's got problems, right? You could have problems, right? For instance, your wife is upset with you because you don't spend enough time with her and your boss is upset because you're not doing well enough at work. It's like you kind of get to choose which of those problems you want to have. Slack off at work, lose lose your job, risk losing your wife. I don't know. Go the other way, lose your marriage, lose your, it's a problem. Like we make choices, and those choices are directly linked to something. So if the NBA decides to go away from this over sponsored event and returns more to its roots, which were established long ago, long before Adam Silver was even born, and if they can go to that and they can say, okay, we're going to make All Star Weekend about the players, we're going to make it about the All Stars, we're going to make it about competition. Well, I mean, first of all, very, very difficult to reverse a trend that has been going one way for like 20 years. You'll have to work at it very hard. But if you do manage to do that, I think you're choosing to have a problem. And the problem is that maybe you won't have as much money. Maybe you won't have, but any organization that is completely orienting themselves 100% towards the greenback or the dollar is an organization that is destined to fail, in my opinion. And I say that as I know that some of the most successful organizations in the world are rolling in trillions of dollars right now and billions of dollars because they frankly continue to roll out the money. So don't listen to me. What maybe I'm wrong, but I would say, if you're an ethical person, if you're somebody who has a conscience and you're somebody, then I'm sure this message does vibe with you, which is to say that sometimes you got to say no to the good offer because the good offer isn't all that good, that it's taking something away. And I will say, with all the planning for Pendance, and I'm very, very happy to tell you guys that the site is finally done. Like I I worked so hard at this to make this organized for y'all, like not just for y'all, but like for everybody, because people were like, "How do we navigate this? This is hard." Blah 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 blah. So, putting all of this together, putting together 71, films across and good films across 4 days, putting a gala together, having a game night, having all of this events, like having all these people coming from all over the world coming together and doing this without any major sponsorships. Basically, this is like hard, bro. Like it's hard. Like what we are able to do with as little as we're able to do it. And we talk to people all the time. And by the way, to y'all like who are wondering, basketball state. Yes, sir. Basketball state coming up, and I, got to give Basketball State a shout out on uh, on the panel today. And I got a special offer for y'all too. If you want to check out Basketball State and you don't want to pay for a ticket because times are really tough, and we are not immune to that, and you are not immune to that. Times are tough economically in Toronto. I got a code for y'all. Pensare B-Ball 25. This is not an insult to anyone who bought tickets. This is just an offer to people who maybe, don't have, 15, $20 to buy a ticket or $20 or whatever it is. Pensar B-Ball 25 for the first, I believe, 6 or 7 tickets if you want to claim them. Do not claim and then don't show up. I want the theater full for this dude. Gabe and John Alpert, like to their screening and films together. They're both fantastic directors. So definitely come out and check out Basketball State at Pendance. The land of 10,000 hoops is about the rise of Minnesota basketball. It features several NBA players. It's screening in Canada for the first time, so you will get to tell your friends you saw a film before everybody else in this vast country got to see it, which is very cool. So yes, everything is updated, everything is clear, and the entire schedule. You know what? If you don't want to see films, just come out to one of the socials, man. Grab a drink with us, right? Like come to, any one of these socials on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like we got what do we got on Saturday? We got a bar night. Uh, why the hell did we put a location there? We'll put the location tonight. It's just right across the street. We got a game night at Free Play Arcade on Friday, limited capacity, but it's gonna be really fun. So I hope you guys can come out. It was beautiful last year to see so many PENSARE basketball people, seeing Scotty Barnes jerseys. Big shout outs to Joseph. I remember Joseph wearing a PENSARE basketball jersey. Your boy Vince, the music guy, he will be there. Several of your favorite callers, I'm sure, will be there. So hopefully you will be there as well. Anyways, I did. I'm very very proud of myself because I don't know if y'all know about digital cinema packages, but basically the films you guys watch in the theaters, they're not DVDs. I don't know who knows this or who doesn't know this because certainly before I became a filmmaker, I didn't know that. I don't know how. I thought everyone's like working off those friggin' film reels that we used to see in the 80s. That's not how it works. So today, modern cinemas, I apologize, they project using a digital cinema package. These things are very, very data intensive, very, very big files. And so one of the cool things about Pendance is we don't actually charge filmmakers for this because we have a very artist first altruistic vision about things, and we hate for filmmakers to pay for anything, so we do this for them. And every single year I'm struggling to get these DCPs on time, but this year I said no, I'm not going to be super stressed the week leading up to Pendance because I'm usually like underslept, eating pizza like a ninja turtle and not sleeping, and then I show up to Pendance every year looking like a zombie and being very agitated and very caffeinated. But this year, I actually pretended in my mind that Pendance started a week early, and so I was like, okay, Wednesday night, I get the films to the theater, and we do the tests, and it's all good, and I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off for the entire week. And now I just got a week to chill. Okay, I don't want to say chill because obviously there's like a million things to do, but it's nothing like to the point of like, oh, if you don't do this, the festival doesn't happen. Now it's like the festival is kind of like the bare bones of it is there. Now we just need to fill it out, right? And we are very aware, very, very aware that, we'll probably end up losing money on this event. We've lost money many times before. I don't care. I don't care. I'll admit that right now, you know, because it's worth doing. What we are doing here is something that, I'll tell you why we started Pendance in the first place. I wanted a place untouched by this sponsorship shit. I did. Why do you think we are sponsored by my own freaking film festival instead of some gambling company? Because I believe in promoting that, because I think I've always kind of believed in the greater good, like whatever the hell it is for the greater good. And I believe that stories change lives. I think, seeing a great story can make you examine yourself. It can make you sort of examine. I mean, I think if you want to tie this back to something related to basketball, that's kind of what sucked about All-Star Weekend. What the fuck was the story? What's the story here? What is the story of the dunk contest? G League Mac McClung jumps over the same shit over and over again. I mean, no disrespect to Mac McClung, hell of an athlete, hell of a dunker. I'm very very happy for him. But yo, how does this compare to Michael versus? How does this compare to Michael versus Dominique? How does this compare to Vince and Tracy? How does this compare to those like things? You know what I mean? Like you see a dude on ESPN every single night, dunk, 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 and now he's gonna go and test himself up against a whole bunch of really awesome high flyers. Like, how does that compare? You know what I mean? Even like the All-Star weekend. Y'all remember the roster for the Western All-Stars in 2000? I will remind you because this shocked me. Here's the starting lineup for the Western Conference All-Stars. Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Jason Kidd. What? You know what I mean? Like the East stood no chance whatsoever, right? I don't remember the East one, but my point is, like, that's a story. That's a story. Michael Jordan coming back, Vince Carter giving up his starting spot. That's a story. These are all stories. Ah, the North Carolina legend, one passing the torch to the other. One was seen as the heir apparent. Now he's not the heir apparent. Now he's ducking for Michael Jordan. He won't give up the fans voted him in. The fans got, you know what I mean? Like it's all like a frigging, it's a real story. You know what I mean? And I feel like the NBA has just completely lost its ability to tell good stories. And so we like to tell stories here at Pensare Basketball. We like to tell the story about Scotty against the odds. We like to tell a story about a fresh start for Brandon Ingram. We like to tell the story about the kid from Bafang, Cameroon, in Ulrich. And I think that this deepens our connection to these players and our understanding of these players because, in the end, what are we really watching when we are watching a basketball game? We're watching superheroes, man. We are watching superheroes. Oh, you don't think Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram are superheroes? You should meet them. They're huge. They're huge, huge human beings who do things that huge human beings should never be able to do. They are people who are the 1 of 1 billion type of, talents, or 1 in 100 million. I mean, I'm not saying revere basketball players like gods, but certainly they have a lot in common with superheroes. And what would be interesting about Batman goes to a ball and then promotes, Sprite and Puma? You know what I mean? What would be interesting about that? No, Batman is a rich story because you hear about his origin. You hear about the trials and triumphs, and then you see the ironic twist when a person mortified of bats becomes a bat. You know what I mean? Like there's such a rich tapestry there, and that's why that shit exists. And do you know why they have made Batman in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s? And do you know why Batman will be something that your kids will probably still care about? Because that story is so powerful. Greatest stories, right? And that's what we need to remember, is that stories, Pendance has a slogan, story over everything. Stories are as old as time. From the minute people could talk, they could tell stories. When you were feeling down, someone told you a story, made you feel better. When you were feeling bored, someone told you a story that was interesting. It made you feel a little more excited. When you had really bad news, someone probably told you a story about bad news that they got and it made you feel better, right? When you were growing up, your parents told you stories. Hopefully, if you had good parents, they told you stories. They read you bedtime stories. And at some point, we just kind of lost our ability to understand how much stories change our lives. I believe stories can change your life. And I certainly believe that if you like stories, you should definitely consider checking out Pendance next weekend. I'm going to get y'all tomorrow on the first game in a week. I'm very curious to see how rusty everything looks. And, you know, again, prayers very much up. Yes, I did. You'll have to scroll back. I'll definitely timestamp this so for you specifically, because Liam is that dude, right? If you do not timestamp, Liam is like literally the first comment. Timestamps question mark. So I will timestamp it for you, my friend. And definitely. And yes, we did discuss Wemby, and big prayers up to Wemby. Speedy recovery to Ulrich, and good luck to the Toronto Raptors. Personally, kind of hoping they don't win too much and that the teams behind them keep winning a little bit. I mean, yesterday it was so funny. I mean, as much as I'm a Luka fan. I mean, I will be honest about that, very upfront about that. I respect the hell out of the guy, and I think that he's a fantastic basketball player, as I'm a fan of most fantastic basketball players. But when I was watching Charlotte versus the Lakers last night, I got to tell you, my entire brain was oriented towards I hope Charlotte wins so it helps the Raptors tank. And it's so funny how much my brain is orienting towards that. Like I'm rooting for every single team that sucks, and I'm rooting against every single team that's good. Like every game, I'm like Atlanta Hawks. Yes, good, another win. That's another team out of the lottery, you know? And of course, like I look forward to this being over after this year. I don't believe that we will see another tanking year in Toronto for a very long time. So, Darian saying we communicate through stars. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Rob hit one tankathon for the fun of it. We hit the tankathon. We got to hit the tankathon right now. All right. I mean, if you want to see a team that's really fucked right now, Philly. That is a team that is absolutely fucked. By the way, to the NHL people, the last game is paired. So with the basketball state is paired with a hockey documentary by a fantastic documentarian, John Alper. You can Google him; he's incredible. He's going to be zooming in to the post I was gonna say post game. Gosh, I'm so basketball oriented right now. To the Q&A, and you will be able to talk to John Alpert and also Gabe Hostetler. So you'll be able to talk to directors directly about their film, which is very cool. So definitely check out that promo. But yes, we boom. Okay. But yes, the Sixers suck. Like the Paul George situation is so bad right now. All right, should I do it? I'm scared, yo. Why am I scared? It's not like this has any real consequence. Oh, I was right to be scared. I was right to be scared. How did that happen? Oh no. Okay. All right. Let me bring no that I was scared. That was old Rob. That was hat Rob. That was salty Rob. Let me bring good happy Pendance energy into this, okay? Because I am very, very happy right now. So, yeah, I don't know if y'all can tell. I don't have a very expressive face, but I am very, very happy right now. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, bring the good, happy Pendance juju into this. Oh, that's better. We moved up. Fuck. Why are you? All right. All right. We're climbing. We're climbing. We're climbing. Why we keep falling? Ah, there we go. That's the one. That's the one that counts. That is the one that counts. All the others were bullshit, and that's the one that counts. Don't worry, I'm not gonna be super disappointed on draft night, regardless, or lottery night. I mean, I'm almost expecting the Raptors to like finish around 7th or 8th. I've set myself up for that like emotional, you know, ugh moment. So yes, I do believe the Raptors have an inside track on Kaman Malawach, though. I do. I think like they've scouted him very, very well. So yes. End it there 100%, dude. It's over. Like never again. No, I'm gonna say never again. I'm probably gonna do this several times throughout the year. Anyways, give this video a like if you enjoyed having the lives back. I certainly missed the hell out of these lives, and there were many times over the last week that I was itching to get back into it. But I was like, you know what? I need to hone in. I need to be focused, and I need to make sure that this event goes well. And I'm very, very happy to tell you we have a great event planned. So thank you for bearing with me as I took that 1 week off. I don't expect any more hiatuses. Naturally, we will not be able to do the post game live during the festival, which is happening the 27th to the second. So there's 2 games during that thing that we won't be able to do right away. But we'll react to it. I'll see how my schedule is looking, but it's packed, man. It's like the schedule is basically like Thursday night's super soft, but I don't think there's a game on Thursday night. Then Friday, it's not super packed, so I'm probably sure I could do a Friday post game after the festival or during the festival, but I wouldn't have watched the game. So what is the point of me talking about a game that I haven't watched? I don't know. Karen Hall saying missed you and the Raptors too. Thank you so much, Karen Hall. Uh, Karen is an awesome community member who often will, um, I'm like really amazed at how much this community really, attendance is a priority. The games are not needed. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'll do my best, man. I will do my best. I don't personally. I want a somewhat new philosophy going into this year, but I don't want to do anything half. I've been doing a lot of things half-assed. I actually noticed, and I'll leave this on a somewhat, you know, somber note, that I've noticed, myself going sideways a lot throughout, the last 4 years. I was struggling yesterday to be like, am I better at anything than I was 4 years ago? Or am I kind of like in my mid 30s? Am I approaching that feeling of I'm not growing anymore? I'm not growing in a positive direction. I'm not necessarily like accelerating at anything. I don't feel necessarily like I stand super tall and proud about, the work I'm doing. And that's probably a sign that I need to change, right? And so, yes, I am very, very committed to getting so much better at this. I'm committed to making Pendance great. I'm committed to making Pensare Basketball great. I'm committed to continuing to be as great as I can be on the panel. And I want this year to be a year that on December 31st, I can look back and say, I changed my life this year. So thank you all for supporting. We got 220 people here. I haven't done a live in 7 days. So very, very poorly marketed or planned out, gave very little notice, and yet there are 222 people in here, and I appreciate it very much. So that's good. People tell me I'm improving, but I'm usually my harshest critic in that regard. So yeah, enjoy yourself with Pendance, Rob. Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I usually don't. I mean, this sounds kind of morbid to say, but I usually don't enjoy it. I usually dread it because it's so much work. But this year and last year, actually, I decided I was going to enjoy it. Last year, even though I wasn't very prepared and was running around to the last minute, and we had a very small team last year, I did manage to enjoy it because I walked into it with the right mentality. This year, I'm walking to it with an even better mentality. I want to have and with a better team and a bigger team, and frankly, a lot more planning has gone into it this year. So I feel like we're very organized. If you told me that Pendance was happening on Sunday, as opposed to next Thursday, I would be like a little bit stressed, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, we're dead. So that little buffer zone is going to give me some time to get into the gym, to clean myself up, to, hopefully get some sleep. Lord knows I've not slept very much in the last 7 days, and just show up as my best self. So that's important. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. And again, little mention. I'm actually going to write it here. Hang on one second. I'm going to put it here. There's a link in the bio to basketball state tickets for this community. And here is your code to anybody who wants to claim the 6 tickets that are available. I think the tickets are about $20 or $22. They're yours with that code. You just have to click on the link and purchase, but definitely show up. If you get them, show up, because you're taking the 6 that are available. So definitely show up, and I promise you have a great time. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Enjoy yourselves.